Hi, Jonah Larkin here, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about a simple mindset tool that you can use not only to make or break any habit that you want, but also you can use it to achieve your biggest and most audacious goals. Basically, this information is designed to help you do what you say you want to do and stop doing what you say you want to stop doing. And I've also linked to a worksheet in the comment section that you can refer to if you want to dive deeper or you want to integrate this stuff into your life. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm a bit of a habit fanatic. Now, does this mean I'm a steely-eyed master of willpower? Nope. Actually, quite the opposite. Like many people, I have an easy time doing things that I consider fun or entertaining, and a much harder time doing things that I consider difficult or tedious. And look, I know there's tons of articles and videos all over the web that tell you what you ought to be doing to turn into somebody who wakes up at 5 a.m., meditates, works out, reads a book a day, and never even looks at a donut. But besides being completely unrealistic, most of the articles and videos don't do a great job in giving you easy, tried and true strategies to help you do what you say you want to do. Now, about a year ago when COVID hit, I created a class called the Morning Rhythm Reset that basically guarantees that after 30 days you will have created a bulletproof morning routine. And the thing is that when I first started teaching it, I noticed that there were certain people who, no matter what they tried, just could not stick to consistent habits, no matter how small. And we're talking about things like waking up and taking 3 deep breaths before they grabbed their phone and started scrolling through Instagram. And so as I dove into the problems that some of my students were having, I realized that they were making one critical error that was sabotaging their best efforts. But before I get into what that mistake was, let's dive into a little background about how the mind works. Now let's start with the prefrontal cortex, which sits right behind the forehead, and it's the most advanced part of the brain, and it's responsible for things like long-term planning, decision-making, social behavior, and general executive functioning. But even though it's super advanced, the prefrontal cortex can only process about 40 bits of information per second, and that's really not very much. Because the entire rest of the brain, which governs things like habits and motivation, memory, instinct, your nervous system, and things like your sex drive and hunger, processes 40 million bits of information per second. And all of this is operating below the level of consciousness. I mean, it would be super overwhelming if you had to tell your heart to beat or your lungs to breathe, and it would make it pretty rough to do anything else. The point is that your subconscious mind is literally 1 million times more powerful than the part of the mind that thinks it's in control. And newsflash, what you think is in control is actually being controlled by the subconscious mind. Now, the famous psychologist Carl Jung said, "Make the unconscious conscious, or it will run your life and you will call it fate." And what this really means is that 95% of what you do, think, feel, and believe is habitual. And to put it simply, habits are really just a result of repetition, things that you've done or thought or experienced over and over and over, and these get programmed into your brain via myelination of your neural pathways, which basically is like turning the nerves of your brain into a 5-lane freeway in order to move information quicker. And to free up space for your executive functioning mind, the brain pushes cognitive load into the unconscious, which allows you to store and process new information. Now, your repetitive actions, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are a result of your culture, your previous beliefs and behaviors, the society you live in, your community, and your friends and family. And so whatever you're surrounded by will inevitably become habitual. So if you live in Tibet or Nepal, you'll likely be drinking yak butter tea in the morning versus coffee if you live in Los Angeles or Lisbon. And no matter where you live, you probably spend more time than you'd like to on your phone. I know I do. And how much and how often and what you use your phone for is really all a product of habit and culture. Let's say you have a big goal, like losing 20 pounds in 90 days, or doubling your salary, or maybe finding the perfect partner. You have to align your daily habits with whatever your long-term goal is. But how do you actually do that? If you want to lose weight, it's going to take a little more than simply going on a diet and working out more. If you want to double your income, it might take a little bit more than simply asking your boss to pay you twice as much, although, hey, that's never a bad idea. So what you need to do is you need to get those big decisions aligned with your daily behaviors and program them into your subconscious mind. And this is what most people who are giving advice miss. And though what I'm about to tell you does take some effort, if you follow it and make it your own, you are bound to be successful. Now let's get back to the students that I was talking about before who weren't experiencing success in building and maintaining their morning rhythm habits. And I realized they were making a mistake in one of the 4 following areas: what they were thinking, what they were feeling, what they were doing, and what they were believing. And I call these 4 things the habit quadrant. So let's start with the habits of the mind, and I'll give a few examples for each particular quadrant. Habits of the mind are the thoughts that you have running through your head all the time. And if you're thinking, you need to understand how to use your thinking in the best way possible. Now, many people believe that they are their thoughts, and this could not be further from the truth, because how can you be your thoughts if you're able to observe your thoughts? So the key is to begin to observe your thoughts. And the way to use this tool is to recognize what you're thinking and then change the thoughts to be a more accurate representation of what you're experiencing. And I'll get into a few examples in a moment. But sadly, thinking is really one of the most misunderstood tools that humans have, and the ability to think abstractly and imagine, I think, is the thing that probably makes us more human than anything else. But instead of utilizing thinking and imagination productively, much of humanity is still stuck in thinking mind, believing that they're their thoughts, or just slightly less worse is believing that your thoughts represent reality. And nothing could be further from the truth. So if you buy this line of reasoning, I suggest you check out Sam Harris's work on neuroscience and consciousness, and I've provided a link in the comments below. Because if you think the thoughts you're having are yours, I've got a bridge in Arizona I'd love to sell you. No, I know this might be hard to believe, but your thoughts are more a product of your environment than anything else. The second part of the quadrant are habits of the heart. And now your heart is in charge of your emotions. And understanding and regulating your emotions and feelings might be the most important of all the habits, because it doesn't matter what you're doing in your life, whether you're the most successful person in the world or you work at a gas station, your emotions on a moment-to-moment basis, I believe, dictate your level of happiness or lack of happiness. So are you walking around with an open heart or a closed heart? Are you feeling positive, negative, neutral? You know, what do you do when a difficult situation arises? Do you sit with it and see what needs to be done, or you immediately spring into action and try to solve it before you've really thought it out? Do you let others in? You know, what about what's happening in the world? Like, there's love and suffering. Can you tune into it and still live a full life? Or do you have to dissociate and pretend that none of the bad stuff in the world is happening? Now, a great way to monitor your emotions is to just stop periodically and ask yourself simply, what am I feeling right now? Now, it can be difficult to identify and then change your emotions. And one thing that I've seen get in the way of people knowing how they're feeling is that a large portion of people just actually can't describe the actual feeling or emotion that they're having. And this is a sign of being disembodied, meaning someone is living in their thoughts and not really paying attention to their feelings. And I understand, look, we're all wired differently, and there's a wide spectrum of neurological diversity in the population. You know, and at the current moment, you may be able to feel the sensations and emotions in your body, or you may not be able to feel these. Or when you try to feel them, it might feel completely overwhelming, like you've just got too much going on in there. Now, if you fall into the category of I can't really feel anything, or I feel overwhelmed with too much, then I recommend starting really slowly and just begin to identify just the slightest emotions that you are experiencing. I've linked to a chart and a worksheet below this video. There's a chart of feelings, and there's also some other exercise to really help you start to navigate this. And I recommend really diving in and working on it for a solid week and see how much things start to change for you. Because once you're able to identify your emotions, you can start to do some pretty cool stuff. Now, let's say you're feeling the emotion of fear, and that fear is keeping you paralyzed from moving forward in a particular aspect of your life. So the next step is just to ask yourself, how would you like to feel? I like to say, how do I want to feel right now? Now, the beauty of this habit is that fairly immediately your mind will tell you, I want to feel courageous in the face of fear. And the cool thing about that is once you know what feeling you want, your subconscious mind at 40 million bits per second will immediately get to work to make it happen. But you do have to ask for it, and I recommend you ask whatever higher power you believe in to help you feel the way you want to. And if you don't believe in a higher power, just ask the power of your mind, which is immense, to help you feel 5%, 10%, 20% more like you'd like to feel. And I guarantee you, you will start to feel better. Now let's talk about digging deep into your emotional body. You know, sometimes you might be feeling angry or agitated or something else, and you ask yourself how you want to be feeling, and the answer comes back that you just want to be angry or you just want to be sad. And if this happens, then there's something important for you in that particular emotion. You know, so many people disregard their own anger and think they shouldn't be feeling angry, or they shouldn't be feeling sad or lustful or any number of emotions. But it's really, really important to never disregard what's happening in your emotional body. And that's because every emotion has a message for you. So if you continue to experience a specific emotion day after day, I advise my clients is to just sit with it, feel it. See if it has a message for you. You know, ask yourself a few questions like, where's the emotion located in my body? Is it in my heart? Is it in my gut? Is it in my back? What does it look like? Does it have a texture? Does it have a color? Does it have a sound? And then just slowly sink in and feel what that feels like, and if you can visualize it, all the better. And then close your eyes and let yourself think back, way back to an earlier time in your life, and ask yourself, when was an earlier time in my life when I experienced this same feeling? And whatever memory comes up is likely very close to the core belief that is keeping you stuck wherever you are, because emotions are neurologically, biochemically, and structurally stored in the body. And you can read more about this in books like The Body Keeps the Score, which I highly recommend. Now, a quick word of caution. When you start to dive into some of these deeper emotional body issues, it can trigger memories that may be traumatic. And if this does happen to you, there's nothing wrong with you. But what I do recommend is that you reach out to a professional like a therapist or a professional counselor. So now that I've said that, let me go back to the money example that I used before. Now, when I used to log into my bank account on my phone, I'd feel the emotion of fear, and I was scared that I'd find my account overdrawn by some charge that I couldn't remember having made. And as you can imagine, I didn't want to look at my bank account balance. And this was actually costing me more money because I would bounce checks and all that stuff, and I lost more money than if I would have been paying attention. Now, when I started to recognize this, I began to consciously feel gratitude for whatever money I had or if my account was overdrawn, I consciously felt gratitude for just even having a bank account and a smartphone to access it with. But after a while practicing with these new feelings, I began to pay attention to the money in my account, and I started to behave in different ways that didn't cost me more money. And at this point, I feel gratitude whenever I receive money, but also when I have to spend it. I'm just grateful for the flow of money in my life, and as a result, I pay close attention to it, which creates better results for the money in my life. So the point with the emotions is, one, not to escape them, to feel them, but see if you have the ability to change those emotions. And when you change those emotions, your thoughts and actions will follow from that. Now let's move on to the third quadrant, which is all about the habits of the body. Now, what do you do with your body? How do you hold yourself physically? Are you upright and dignified? Are you curled up in front of your computer, shoulders hunched? You know, how do you move throughout the day? Do you get your heart rate up? Are you strong or weak or otherwise? How aware are you of your body? Do you walk over to the fridge when you're bored to see what's in it, even though you're trying to lose weight? You know, habits of the body are all about what it is that you do with your body. If you put a piece of candy in your mouth, you're doing that. If you put a piece of apple in your mouth, you're doing that. Do you walk, or do you sit on the couch instead? Do you walk and introduce yourself to the person that you want to meet, or do you sit there embarrassed, keeping your mouth shut? Now, doing something or not doing something, especially when you don't want to, can be really, really challenging. But there are some good strategies that can help you. And the first and best strategy is to do whatever it is that you want to do with other people. Because doing that behavior you want with other people increases your chances of actually doing it by 95%. So find an accountability partner, hire a coach, do it with somebody else. So let's go back to my money example again. So what I did was I found a money coach and I hired him, and with his guidance I started doing a bunch of positive money management behaviors that I was ignoring before because I was having such a bad feeling about it and I couldn't access if I didn't change my emotions before. So if you want to run a marathon, you're going to need to find a running buddy or a running coach. If you want to write a book, you should probably join a writer's group. And almost any habit is easier to create and maintain when you do it with another person or other people. Got it? Okay, great. Last but not least, let's discuss the final quadrant, and that is habits of soul and spirit. And this one could be the most powerful of all because it encompasses what you actually believe. Now, there are 3 levels of belief that you should be aware of. The first level of belief is really about consciousness, and this encompasses questions like, who am I or what am I? What is God? Do I die? And you may have never really thought about this level, but this is the level where freedom is truly possible. These beliefs are ones that come about through direct experience and really have very little meaning if you've adopted them from your family or society or your church or a book, because these highest levels of belief are about your own internal knowing through direct experience. Now you can start to approach and access this level of belief and work with it through inquiry. So you can ask any of the questions above, you can ponder them seriously, you can journal, you might get an answer, or you might even get a better question. Tony Robbins says the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. And while I'm no fanboy of Tony Robbins, I think that statement is incredibly accurate. And this level of belief is where you might get into your darkest state, or you might have your finest hour. It's really way too much to cover here in this video, but if you want to dive more into this, I recommend books like The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or the Enlightenment series by Jed McKenna. Now, the second level of belief is about meaning and purpose, and these are beliefs about what is the meaning of life, Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And these are the beliefs that determine what you do with your life and how you respond to it in different situations. You know, many times people feel trapped in one way or another in their life, maybe with their job or their relationship or with their family or partner or financial situation or really anything else that's external to your own experience. But the thing is that you have the power to change how you approach each one of these areas of your life depending on what your belief is in meaning and purpose. Viktor Frankl, who famously wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, was a philosopher, and he was Jewish and a concentration camp survivor in Nazi Germany. And he said everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And this is ultimately where it nets out. What is your attitude going to be about the events in your life? Again, using myself as an example and my money situation, I did feel trapped for a few years. I blamed external circumstances. I thought I was the victim. But when I finally decided that I was going to take my external circumstances as something good or as blessings, then my whole internal approach changed, and then my whole external approach changed. And this is true for anything and everything in your life. Are you going to take negative things that happen to you as a curse or as a blessing, even when they're super unpleasant? Now, the third level of belief is what you believe about situations, people, and places. And I think Henry Ford said it well when he said, whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. Because we have beliefs about every possible thing that we encounter on a daily basis. Like, I like her, but I don't like him. I want this, but not that. That politician is for me. That politician is against me. And managing all of this takes so much energy because you're constantly judging what you consider to be good or bad. And if you can start to realize this, then you can start to think in a much more neutral manner. A great illustration of this is this ancient Chinese proverb about a farmer and his horse. And a farmer wakes up one day and his horse is gone. And the neighbors say, "Oh my God, what a curse, your horse has run away." And he says, "We'll see." 2 days later, his horse comes back and there's a couple of mares in tow. And the neighbors say, "Oh my God, what a blessing, now you have multiple horses." And the man says, "We'll see." A couple days later, the man's son is trying to break one of the horses. He falls off, breaks his leg, and the neighbors say, "Oh, what a curse, your son broke his leg, what are you gonna do?" He says, "I don't know, we'll see." A week later, the army comes to town, takes away all the able-bodied young men, except for the farmer's son who's recovering from his broken leg, and the neighbors say, "Oh, what a blessing, the army didn't take your son." And he says, "We'll see." And the moral of this story is just like Hamlet said, "For there is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Now there's an excellent book that I recommend if you want to start to think more neutrally, and it's called It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad. So what you want to do with each of these quadrants is to draw a graph with an X and Y axis, and now you'll have your 4 quadrants. And in each quadrant, write down all of the ideas that you can think of for a specific habit that you want to make or you want to break. Write down what you'll need to think, what you'll need to feel, what you'll need to do, and what you'll need to believe. And this can start to be a bit of a map in order for you to start to accomplish things that you want to accomplish. Now, if you find yourself unable to come up with an idea for a specific quadrant or habit or something you want to do, use Google, read a blog, watch a video, read a book about someone who's done the same thing, or even better yet, talk to somebody who's done it before. There's really no sense in reinventing the wheel here. So that, my friends, is the habit quadrant. And if you can take the time to methodically go through each one of these, it's an incredibly powerful tool to create the change that you want to make in your life. Again, I've posted links to all the worksheets for this video below, and you can go ahead and download one and get to work right away. And last but not least, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you got some value from it. It really helps to get this video in front of more people, and that's my mission, is to help people. So that's it for today. May you thrive and be healthy.